Yeehaw. Good morning, everyone. I now call to order the July 27, 2023 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners business meeting. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today. Clerk to the Board, Tony Mayernick. County Counsel, Stephen Madcore. Commissioner Schrader is on her way. Roll call, Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Smith.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public, that Robert's Rules of Order will be used in this business meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Gary, can you introduce the first item?
Yes, Chair Smith. First is the consent agenda. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
Elected officials, item 1, approval of previous business meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners. Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with EverHealth LLC for comprehensive correctional medical, dental, pharmaceutical, and mental health services at the Clackamas County Jail. Total value is $32,758,411.32 for 5 years. Funding through Public Safety Local Option Levy Funds and $23,586,056.15 in budgeted county general funds for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Human Resources, approval of a personal services contract with Business Solver Incorporated, BusinessSolver.com Incorporated for benefits administration. Contract value is $1,654,725 over 5 years. Funding through contributions and fees paid by county departments, employees, retirees, COBRA beneficiaries, and other agencies contracting with Clackamas County for employees' benefits administration, including $479,870 in budgeted county general funds. Juvenile, approval of a intergovernmental agreement with Marion County for access to utilize Marion County Juvenile Detention Facility for emergency juvenile detention services. Agreement value is $500,000 for 2 years. In the event services are necessary, the department may request contingency county general funds. Transportation and Development, item 1, approval of a guaranteed maximum price contract with PNC Construction for construction of the Oak Lodge Library. Amendment value is $15,314,232. Total value is $15,461,232. Funding through County ARPA, State ARPA, Oak Lodge Library funds, and $5.7 million in budgeted county general funds. Finance items 1 through 11 are essentially the same. I will read the first and the vendors for items 2 through 11. Approval of a personal services contract with Language Line Services Incorporated for as-needed interpreter services. Contract value not to exceed $1.25 million over 5 years. Funding through beginning fund balance, taxes, state and federal funds, charges, fees, fines and assessments, other revenues, and budgeted county general funds. Item 2 is with Ling Perfect Translations Incorporated. Item 3, Lingquava Interpreters Incorporated. Item 4, the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization. Item 5, Multilingual Technologies Incorporated. Item 6, Verbio. Item 7, Language Link. Item 8, Languages Translation Services. Item 9, English to Spanish LLC. Item 10, Homeland Language Services LLC. Item 11, National Interpreting Service Incorporated. Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval to accept the Community Development Block Grant Award. Grant value is $2,203,585 for 1 year. Funding through U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval to accept the Home Investment Partnerships Grant Award. A grant value is $1,088,143 for 8 years. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Approval to accept the Emergency Solutions Grant. Grant value is $193,644 for 1 year, funding through U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval of Amendment 18, updating program language to Revenue Agreement 7642 with Care Oregon Incorporated for updates to the shared accountability model. Estimated revenue of the amendment is $500,000 for 2 years. Agreement value is approximately $4,068,430 over 9 years. Funding through Care Oregon Incorporated. No county general funds are involved. Item 5, approval to apply for a Community Benefits Initiative small grant from Trillium Community Health Plan for the All Ready Network to address health inequities for children. Agreement value is up to $200,000 for 1 year. Funding through Trillium Community Health Plan. No county general funds are involved. Item 6, approval of a grant agreement with Kaiser Permanente for medical respite care program. Grant value is $250,000 for 2 years. Funding through Kaiser Permanente. No county general funds are involved. Item 7, approval of a revenue agreement with Oregon Network of Community Health Centers Accountable Care Organization, LLC, for participation in a Medicare Accountable Care Organization. Agreement value is $375,000 for 5 years. Funding through Oregon Network of Community Health Centers Accountable Care Organization, LLC. No county general funds are involved. Item 8, approval of an amendment to purchase and sale agreement waiving conditions for the purchase and facility and property located at 6605 Southeast Lake Road in Milwaukee, and approval of a board order approving sale and delegating signing authority to the chair and/or county administrator. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Wow. Thank you very much. Tony, take a breather. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved for approval of the consent agenda. Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Yes.
Chair Smith, I sure do like libraries.
As we all do, and that's why it's on the list. Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West?
I'm abstaining because I was not here for much of the briefings, but I also like libraries. But since this is an entire package beyond just libraries, I am abstaining today on this consent agenda.
Commissioner Savas?
Yes, I too like libraries.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, definitely.
Chair Smith?
Yes, aye. Motion passes 3-1-0. Thank you very much. And the folks in the room who are here to support the libraries, we do appreciate you very much. And I know you are grateful for what's about to happen. Yes. Who's in that back? Okay. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Gary, what's next?
Next is the consent agenda for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
One item this time, approval of a board order authorizing the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District to apply for the Oregon Department of Transportation and Department of Land Conservation and Development Transportation and Growth Management Program grant for the Trail System Plan. Grant value is $264,000 with a $36,000 match. Funding through the Oregon Department of Transportation and Department of Land Conservation and Development with match funded by NCPRD Capital Asset Fund. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from this particular consent agenda?
No, Chair. I just want to make a statement for those folks that are in the room. The North Clackamas Parks element of the Concord project, I think, is either next week or the week after. So that's another one to come. But that's not what this is here today.
Yep. Thank you. Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda for NCPRD.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved to approval for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District consent agenda, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much, Board. I will now adjourn as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board and convene as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors. Tony.
Next is the consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
One item, approval of Amendment 5, extending duration and adding funding to a contract with Tyler Technologies Incorporated for billing system software and maintenance. Amendment value is $217,788.73 over 2 years, increasing total contract value to $629,392.63 over 23 years. Funding is through Water Environment Services, Sanitary Sewer, and Surface Water Operating Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you, Tony. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from this particular consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval of the Water Environment Services consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved for approval of the Water Environment Services consent agenda, and Commissioner Savas has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please call the poll. And Commissioner Schrader has joined us. Thank you very much.
And I will be an aye on that issue.
We're coming up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tony, please call the poll.
Director West.
Aye.
Director Schrader.
Aye.
Director Scholl.
Aye.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. I will now adjourn as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Up next is public communication. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. I will now open the meeting for public testimony. I will take in-person testimony first. And I have several cards here. Anybody wishing to testify, please fill out a blue card and put it in the basket, and you'll be called on. Up first, I believe it's John Seelig. Seelig? Yes, please come forward, sir. State your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes. Yes, please.
Hello. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is John Seelig. I am a principal broker licensed in Oregon and a managing broker licensed in Washington. I work for Branch Real Estate and represent many Clackamas County clients and have completed numerous transactions in Clackamas County. Like my realtor colleagues, I am a small business that catalyzes many other small businesses each and every day. I'm here to urge you to maintain your investment in DEI programs to fund the Office of Equity and Inclusion fully. I consider the 2 original sins of America to be the enslavement of Africans as free labor on southern plantations and the genocide of America's indigenous peoples. These are deep wounds in the story of the United States that go unhealed today, specifically as it pertains to housing policy and intergenerational wealth. In his outstanding book, The Color of Law, Richard Rothstein makes the point that, quote, until the last quarter of the 20th century, racially explicit policies of federal, state, and local governments defined where whites and African Americans should live. Today's residential segregation in the North, South, Midwest, and West is not the unintended consequence of individual choices and of otherwise well-meaning law or regulation, but of unhidden public policy that explicitly segregated every metropolitan area in the United States. The policy was so systematic and forceful that its effects endure to the present time. Segregation by intentional government action is not de facto. Rather, it is what courts call de jure, segregation by law and public policy. The Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, as leaders elected to represent the entire community, should commit themselves to dismantle systemic inequity and racism. By prioritizing the work of the Office of Equity and Inclusion, the county will be working to address systemic inequities, historical injustices, and ongoing discrimination that are barriers to a healthy, safe, and thriving community. As just one area of concern, to effectively combat homelessness, we must confront these deep-seated issues head-on and together. Please maintain your investment in DEI programs. This is not easy work. It demands courage and principles to complete effectively. Yes, the goals should be blindingly clear. Yes, you as commissioners should demand accountability and results. And yes, it should be done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Up next, Chris Waller, please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Chris Waller, Jennings Lodge. A few weeks ago, Commissioner Shull said, "I take exception to equity, inclusion, and diversity. What I've seen is it foments tension." Putting aside the obvious issue here, it isn't DEI that foments tension, it's systematic inequality. What is Commissioner Shull afraid of? What is driving the recent surge of pushback against DEI by far right-wing individuals? Fear and denial. Gartner, an organization that advises many of the top companies in the United States, said about pushback to DEI efforts, "Denial is when people don't acknowledge the existence of structures like race, class, or caste and ignore the resulting discrimination or bias. Those who react with denial responses do not acknowledge the different, often negative experiences of marginalized employees in the workplace. Deniers also fail to recognize the underlying reasons why marginalized groups are underrepresented in the workplace and push back on initiatives that aim to address the root causes of underrepresentation. A lack of empathy for marginalized groups often enhances the threat perceptions that drive pushback. A Harvard Business Review study found that some may also fear that DEI initiatives imply that their achievements are not the result of their skills and qualities, but rather their group membership. They called this merit threat, in which advantaged group members feel that recognizing the existence of bias, discrimination, and inequality explains away their own success. Truth is, you've supported DEI, Commissioner Shull. You recognize its importance and necessity just as you parrot right-wing talking points and rage against it. Just a couple of examples. You all just approved a contract for translation services. That's DEI at work. Last week, you unanimously approved an intergovernmental agreement with Portland State University for Phase 2 of the Clackamas County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council Equity Plan. Notice that word equity? In 2022, you all, except for Commissioner West, who wasn't on the board, raved about and unanimously approved Clackamas County joining the Construction Careers Pathway Project, a program to address a severe lack of women and people of color in the construction industry. The framework set several milestones for the county to work toward, including creating clear workforce diversity goals, such as a minimum of 14% of all work hours being performed by women and 25% of all work hours being performed by people of color. This initiative is a prime example of DEI at work. That's the reality. DEI works in the real world. Stop the charades and posturing, and let the Office of Equity and Inclusion keep up its good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Marie Carnes. Please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Marie Carnes, and I live in Oregon City. I'm fairly new to county politics. In fact, this is the very first ever county commissioners meeting I've attended.
Well, welcome.
Oh, thank you. I have been disturbed by seeing you guys multitask as people are talking, and I would say from my education background teaching littles, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, please. I would ask for your undivided attention. I was compelled forth because I believe having a department dedicated to the leveling the playing field for all our county, for all of our people in the county is important. DEI means everyone, regardless of differences in race, religion, gender, identity, sexual orientation, ability, or even how we affiliate politically, is welcome at the table and invited and encouraged to come. Clackamas County has a lot of work to do in that regard. I live in the near the neighborhood where just a few months ago we found Aryan Nation flyers in our driveways, beckoning us to support white supremacy and straight power. That was very disturbing. It's what my kids would call ick. You know, it gave me that ick feeling. We have a lot of work to do here. Look around this office, this house here. We are fairly homogeneous in skin tone, and it looks like we are not very diverse, just on the surface of looking here. I'm sure there's some diversity. This is in contrast to the 2.5 hours I recently spent at the DMV. If you go to the DMV, you will see your constituents. You will see octogenarians. You will see moms holding 3 babies on their hips and 1 in the carriage. You will see people of all different nationalities and faiths. So that's the optics I want to compare. Until we look like a slice of the DMV, our work is not done here. And I want to speak about optics. Commissioner Schull, to my knowledge, we've never met, but you're a public figure. And I have done a little digging in your backstory. And so in a nutshell, I think it would be fair to say that you were called out for putting some xenophobic, homophobic, and racist things on your social media. You were held accountable and almost lost your job here. One of the caller-outers, so to speak, was, oh, dang.
Thank you very much. Please
All right.
wind up.
All right.
Appreciate you coming forward. You can submit the rest of your testimony, Marie, by email if you would like to. Thank you very much. Up next, you bet, Alexa Lackman. Please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes. Welcome.
My name is Alexa Lockman. I am a real estate broker. I am the president of the Oregon LGBTQ+ Real Estate Alliance. I am a proud resident of Oregon City. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce here in Oregon City and a board member at Children's Center. I'm also an immigrant originally from South Africa, and I'm here to speak in support of the Office of Equity and Inclusion. As an openly queer realtor, whose clients are often also members of the LGBTQ+ community and who often have intersectional racial identities also, I can tell you that I have had clients choose not to purchase homes in Clackamas County because of the stigma and history of white supremacy in this county and because of a prevalent anti-LGBTQ+ sentiment here. As much as I can assure them that they are safe and welcome here, how can I justify that quantitatively when our county is considering fully defunding the Office of Equity and Inclusion? How can we not have a fully funded Office of Equity and Inclusion when every Friday Proud Boys wave anti-LGBTQ flags on Highway 213? How can we not have a fully funded Office of Equity and Inclusion when there are businesses hosting and openly advertising anti-Pride Month social events? How can we not have a fully funded Office of Equity and Inclusion when a recent skirmish between neo-Nazi groups made national headlines on the day of Oregon City's first ever Pride event? Individuals become emboldened by the tenor of their environment, and it is taking a toll on residents like me. This is an important time in Clackamas County's development, where we as a county get to choose who we want to become regardless of the past. As someone who is embedded in this community and loves it passionately, I can also see clearly the systems of oppression and systemic inequalities that exist here, similarly to those that existed when I grew up in apartheid South Africa. I come to you in the spirit of collaboration to say that unless we take on the work actively, as a county, people like me will not feel valued here. The Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, as leaders elected to represent the entire community, should do just that. I, too, am a member of this community. I am a hardworking person who goes above and beyond, not only for my clients, but for my community. I ask that you do right by me and constituents like me and fully fund the Office of Equity and Inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, Tyler King. Please state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I'm Tyler King. I'm a realtor with Windermere Realty Trust, a member of Portland Metropolitan Association of Realtors, and also a Clackamas County resident. Today, I'm speaking on my own behalf in response to Commissioner Scholl's motion on May 24th to eliminate funding for the Office of Equity and Inclusion, or DEI. The county and municipalities hold a monopoly on zoning, planning, and infrastructure, and their policies impact everyone, from property owners to renters, businesses to schools. History shows that these decisions clearly did not always include diverse voices. What started as deed restrictions became redlining maps, and now regressive zoning policies that limit affordable housing. The result? The average home in Clackamas County is nearly $700,000, a significant barrier for folks trying to ascend the property ladder. Commissioner Scholl proposes to cut DEI funding, arguing it only creates friction. Yet in my experience, friction, the interplay of diverse ideas and perspectives, is a powerful driver of innovation, progress, and prosperity. It's diversity that gives consumers choices and stimulates growth. Likewise, in the community decision-making that is done in this very room, diverse voices yield to balanced and inclusive policies. In my work as a realtor, I've seen the impact of unaffordable housing on marginalized and underrepresented groups. Incorporating DEI into our zoning and planning decisions can help create more affordable housing options in all neighborhoods, fostering a more equitable community. With the average home in Clackamas County being nothing close to affordable, it's clear we need to have more housing options. And if we continue to just have the same voices at the same table, this is unlikely to change. As the sole authority on zoning, planning, and infrastructure, it's your duty to ensure these policies are inclusive, equitable, and responsive to the needs of our community. Cutting DEI from our budget neglects that responsibility. Let's view Commissioner Scholl's motion as a call to reaffirm our commitment to DEI. Let's see DEI not as a fiscal burden, but as a strategic investment, creating a market that is ripe for wealth building in our communities. Let's make our zoning, planning, and infrastructure decisions fair, just, and thriving for all. This isn't about being woke. It's about being fiscally responsible and good policy making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, John Mullen. Please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, John Mullen from Oregon City. I am very interested in the discussion this morning. I was present for the May budget hearings when this discussion emerged and listened to all of the discussion, talked to several of you afterwards as well. And I thought it made sense to come back and talk a little bit about DEI. I'm going to offer really sort of a different perspective, a historic perspective. When I first came to work in Clackamas County, there were 241,919 people by the census. 96.4% of that population was white. In looking at the 22 projections that happens before the census comes in, there were 423,177 people in Clackamas County, 79.1% white. So diversity is already here in Clackamas County and will continue to be diverse. And by the way, the older population was about 99.3% over the age of 65. It's now 20%. So when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, some of the populations that are often forgotten are the older people and people with disabilities. I had the opportunity to visit the restroom on the first floor before I came up here. It was a matter of some controversy when we moved into the building because we had a disability advocate group that said the standards for accessibility were not adequate to get a wheelchair, a power wheelchair, in and out of the bathroom. The bathrooms had to be retrofit, but it would have been better to have listened to the group in the first place. The third thing I just want to mention is that with changes in immigration law in the 1980s, I became aware that people were going to be settling out because of the changes that had happened at the national level. I got together a group of county and state local partners, and we planned for getting water and food into the camps that were inadequate during the summer months, but we knew they were going to be terrible during the winter months. We also relocated a number of people to a church camp. So Clackamas County actually did a really good job with welcoming the people that were staying here, and we created out of that a group that still exists, the Hispanic Interagency Networking Team, to take a look at how we're doing with being welcoming and continuing to advance. I understand that the commissioners will be talking about this issue coming up at your work session. So I strongly encourage you to say, there are examples from the past, there are examples from the present, but I would like the board to prepare for the future about creating the kind of county that we want to have that includes diversity, equity, inclusion. And I thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, John. Up next, Marilyn Carty. I hope I pronounced your name right, but you'll correct me. Please come forward. Please state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and the rest of the commissioners.
Would you please speak closer
louder?
into the microphone? We need to hear you. Thank you very much.
You can pull it closer to you.
Yeah, you can pull it. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right. Good morning again. I want to specify these are my personal thoughts, and I will not be as eloquent or data-driven as probably everybody else has been. I am here to discuss the issues of DEI and its necessity. In doing so, I wish to refer back to Commissioner Schrader's remarks on July 20th. Paraphrasing, she remarked that diversity and inclusion were fairly clear in definition, while the equity component could be confusing. I hope I'm correct in that. I will therefore begin with equity. Equity should not be confused with equality. Equality is dealt with in various ways. For example, excuse me, equality before the law, in that if one cannot afford an attorney, the court provides one. Or equality in housing, confronting redlining. Or equality in the workplace, in such that two people performing the same job with the same qualifications and experience should receive same pay, as in men versus women. All of these issues are still current and relevant. Equity, on the other hand, deals with the ability to access the aforementioned equality. Simply put, in my words, if I want entry into a building that has only steps, I may be denied access by a disability. A ramp provides an access of equity, so I can equally share what services are in the building if I should pursue it. Therefore, diversity is acknowledging others' needs, differences, disabilities. Inclusion entails said participation, while equity creates and protects access. All three support each other in order to work. It's like a triangle with arrows going both directions on each side. The Office of DEI is the watchdog of these principles of acknowledgement, access, and participation. And the funding the board authorizes allows the functioning of it to be effective. Therefore, the board is also a watchdog. So how you, the board, proceed determines how Clackamas County is perceived. It would be in a perfect world if the Office of DEI were not needed. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Racism and bigotry are not on the decline, but rather the reverse.
Thank you. You could submit the rest of your testimony online if you would like, and we would read it.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming forward. We have an elected in the room. Thank you very much. Adam K., and I'm not going to try to pronounce your name. Would you please do it for me? Cascovati. Okay. Please state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair, County Commissioners. My name is Adam Kasrabati. I'm a resident of Milwaukee. I'm also a Milwaukee City Councilor. I'm here today speaking on my own behalf and in support of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Recently, I was elected as the first Iranian and/or Muslim elected official in the city of Milwaukee. Not long ago, that probably wouldn't be a possibility. I think today we're hung up on this acronym of DEI, but I think we're all aware that DEI work has been a staple of our national history, whether it's from the Civil Rights Movement, women's suffrage, LGBTQIA rights, Disabilities Act rights. These are all part of our nation's history. Commissioner Scholl, you are a veteran. You and I have worn the same uniform as United States Marines. We served in the same combat zone in Iraq. By defunding this office, you are going to hurt a number of veterans, a number of your fellow brothers and sisters who not long ago, because they may have been part of the LGBTQIA community, would be denied benefits even after serving honorably. Commissioner West, you have been a proponent. You helped change the Oregon Constitution in order to allow same-sex marriages. That's DEI work. That's part of it. You recently, and I commend you for this and respect you for this, you recently sworn in the U.S. Navy Reserves. Not too long ago, as an openly gay man, you would not have been allowed to do that. That's DEI work. These are important things that we face, and these are important issues that we have to deal with. And I just want to remind everybody that these positions that we hold are nonpartisan. We are not beholden to a party or a party's ideology. We are beholden to the people that we serve. The people that we serve are human beings, Americans. And it's not, unlike your article, it's not loudmouth leftists. These are humans. These are people that deserve an equitable opportunity to be able to sit in the same chair as each and every one of you, to be able to speak their mind freely as each and every one of us are. So I strongly oppose the defunding of the office, and I strongly suggest that you continue not only to fund it, but make sure that it's continued to do the work that it's entitled to do and it's supposed to do. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Elvis Clark. Please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Elvis Clark. I live in the city of Milwaukee, and thank you, commissioners, for taking your time. I'll be a bit of contrarian here. I think we could really use these monies. I know the county's budget is very tight, and in parks and those kind of things, you'll have real tangible benefits if you reallocate, reassign these resources to that kind of thing. Parks will provide a benefit that's inclusive of all people and all shades and all of their uniqueness. I live in a street has a family of color. They're second-generation Africans. They've been, I think they came before the equity office was even created or even was a buzzword around the nation. And I enjoy seeing these the children of the family grow up, and they're growing, and they're in teenage now, and they make their way to a park that's nearby, where they play with children of all diverse and varied backgrounds and uniqueness. This is how government actually advances inclusion and equity, is by intermingling, providing the infrastructure, the framework to foster a combination of people to advance the quality of life and learn from each other. And so I think public investment or these dollars should go to something that's real and tangible. I'm not sure what Diversity and Equity Office does here. I haven't really heard of any accomplishments so much. In fact, the swastikas have seemed to have gotten worse since we've created the Equity and Inclusion Office. It may be more resentment, and it creates a backlash. So I think people are worried on one side. It's a divisive issue. I think there's some way of reforming this whole process so that we get actual real benefits that are inclusive of all people and their uniqueness and their backgrounds. And I know the city of Milwaukee, for instance, has been talking about having not enough staff to work on grant monies. There's a whole bunch of grant monies, they say, that is available. And so reassignment of the 3 people that make up this office could actually be grant writing and try and bring in funds for these other purposes that would advance the quality of life for all people. So that's my testimony.
Thank you. Up next, is it Bonnie Heyman? Did I say that right? I can't read your writing. Thank you. Please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Bonnie Heyman from Welch's. Good morning, Commissioners. I find it very concerning in a time when there have been increasing attacks on Asian American people and white supremacist terrorist groups are thriving, that Clackamas County Commissioners want to eliminate the Office of DEI. We should be increasing our support so that all residents feel safe and are included in our communities. What better action can we show all the residents of our communities that they are fully supported, all the people regardless of color, age, or circumstance? Thank you for considering the message you are sending to our community.
Thank you very much. Grover Bornfeld, please come up, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm Grover Jeffrey Bornefeld, and I live in unincorporated Clackamas County in Jennings Lodge. And I moved here in 1991. I helped support the library district in 2008, and then I became a member of the library board and then the library district advisory committee in 2015. And then in 2018, I was on the Concord Property Library Planning Task Force, and today I'm here to celebrate. Thank you. We have worked long and hard. You've been great partners in that process, and as of today, the funding is finalized. We will be able to move forward. We have our guaranteed maximum price, and I'm looking forward to groundbreaking and the ribbon cutting and sharing that with y'all. And I've communicated that before, but we're going to finally have a library suitable for the 21st century and the young people coming up. Which leads me to the other thing I'd like to at least mention. I don't know how many of you know, but for 25 years I worked in the area of working with young people and their families, mostly in poverty, mostly either immigrants or first generation, in a assistance program, voluntarily participating with 100% success rate as far as moving them forward, mostly in the high school age kids and their families. And I really got to see the barriers that people who come from other cultures, and it's not just ethnicity, it also can be life conditions, it can be their orientations, etc. It's gruelingly painful, and it is debilitating. And so I really support y'all having a great conversation on Tuesday. We won't be able to speak then, so I want to at least say that I'm an advocate for considering that we are all, I'm a fifth generation descendant of immigrants, and but the fact that I've been here for 5 generations doesn't make me any more or less It actually is that we need to look at that very few of us are actually not descendants of immigrants. And I want to speak to and remind us of that and/or other issues. So I just really support you in finding the right decision. I don't know exactly what you're going to go through in that process, but I am a significant advocate for equity, inclusion, and inclusion is a big one, and then respecting diversity, because as several people have said, it is repeatedly in our face that it isn't widespread and or there are hitches in that. So thank you for all that you do to move us forward, and I wish you a great conversation on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Jan Carruthers. Please come forward and state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Jan Carruthers, Jennings Lodge, unincorporated, Clackamas County. I grew up in Clackamas County. I was up on the mountain for all those years. And I want to thank you for all the process that it's taken to finalize the library funding, and for all the reasons you've already heard. And one of the reasons that we all care about libraries is that they are the place where, if I could say, democracy is reinforced in the beginning. It's where children learn. It's where children are included. There's so much value besides just I take out a book that happens in the library, and you've taken a stand for that. And in doing so, I think you also need to take a stand for diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that is where we hope children will get it. And I would also say that there isn't a person in the room who doesn't care about those things, but this proposal suggests that we don't need to just wring our hands, that it'll happen. We don't need to have a structure, a staff. This county has invested in a staff that will, as somebody so brilliantly said, is the watchdog to make these things occur. And all of the efforts over the years have taken great work. And yes, they have created friction. And what we know from the way people learn and the way people continue to collaborate together is to not be afraid of friction. So much of what has been unfair has been hidden and pushed down. And these efforts will cause, if we are going to allow the kinds of protests on behalf of something like white supremacy, we need to also force our facing the challenges we have in diversity, equity, inclusion, and equality. There were so many brilliant people speaking this morning. I'm just thrilled that this community is willing to come out and stand for that, just like we have stood for the library. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you. Up next, Thelma Hagenmiller. Please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair Tootie and commissioners and staff. My name is Thelma Hagenmiller. I am a resident of unincorporated Oak Grove, and I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for the consent agenda item that you gave for the maximum for the Concord Library, or the library at the Concord property. I don't want to call it the Concord Library. But I just want to say that it's been a long, long, long process getting to this point, and we're not even there yet. Not a shovel of dirt has been turned yet, but we're looking forward to that happening. So the other thing that I'm thrilled about is that I'm hearing the word inclusive park along with everything there. And that's thrilling me because I live right off of Concord Road, so I'm at the intersection of Concord and McLaughlin a lot, and I know how many people there are that use that intersection in their wheelchairs. And so to have an all-inclusive park just a half a block away is very thrilling to me. And also, I see that they are getting ready to put a left turn lane in on McLaughlin and Concord, which people in the area have asked for or wished for necessarily for a long, long time. So that's all I have to say, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Up next, Patrick Clayson. State your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Patrick Clayson. I'm president ASME 350-4 Water Environment Services. I live in Oregon City. Thanks for having me here again. I'm here just to continue my conversation with you on cost of living adjustments for my membership. Not much has changed. There's been no conversation since last week when I was here. I did want to come back and to take an opportunity to address some of the comments that I received back from the board last week when I was speaking. Commissioner Savis, you stated that it sounded like there was a misunderstanding in how I perceived from your representative at our bargaining table what had happened with the agenda and the item possibly being dropped. That is 100% a possibility. We did talk at length, not great length, but at length at that, and I'm fairly certain that I understood what the Deputy Director of Human Resources was trying to say. I hope it was just a misunderstanding. Commissioner Schrader, you simply said that you'd be seeking clarity on the issue, and that is much appreciated. Thank you very much for that. Commissioner West, you told me that no one at the board was trying to stonewall us, and I appreciate that. We do feel stonewalled by your representative. We have met 4 times, and he has not had anything to pass from the board, basically that he has no real directive. We have yet to receive an offer other than what is already contractually guaranteed from the board, and have received no conversation or discussion upon what our offers are as far as what the board may perceive or how they would like that or what they would like to do with those offers. If there's no movement from your side. So we do feel as though we're being stonewalled by your representative, if not by the board. You talked about needing to have a balanced budget, and absolutely you do. I would just like to point out that WES has no impact whatsoever on the general fund. We have 0 taxpayer dollars funding any of our activities. We are 100% ratepayer based. With that ratepayer base, we provide a service that is on par or above any neighboring municipality in our area, and we provide all that at a greater cost savings than any other municipality. Our rates are considerably lower than anyone else in the metro area. Commissioner Schull, you stated that you guys had been briefed, that you were aware of our asks and our wants, and that you did have concern for that and you would be considering that. We appreciate that very much. You talked about needing to balance the workers' needs with the taxpayer/ratepayer. Again, just the same thing that I told Commissioner West, that we offer a superior service at a superior rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary, would you like to address the misunderstanding? And for the people in the room and the public, this board is in labor contract negotiations. And because of state law, we are not allowed to opine. However, the representative gentleman that's here and anybody else who works for Clackamas County come forward and say whatever they want. I'm correct in that. Gary, would you like to explain what happened?
Yes, and I wasn't here last week, Patrick, but I heard about your comments last week. So this was a there was going to be an update in executive session 2 weeks ago, but we ran out of time. So it wasn't the board blocking it or stopping it. It was actually my suggestion to Eric Serra, who's our chief negotiator for the county, and Stephen, we're out of time, bring it back next week. But then due to scheduling reasons, we couldn't bring it back next week. So please, I want the board in no way, in any way, prohibited, prevented, said, take it off the agenda. It was my suggestion just because we ran out of time. So I want to own that publicly to you, Patrick, and the union members. So we'll get it back on the agenda as soon as possible. I want to say Eric is, he reports ultimately to me. So we are trying to get this before the board as soon as possible, but Eric in no way is purposely stonewalling any of the efforts. So I want to say he's working on his best behalf, as am I, to get this to the board as quick as possible.
I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate you very much. Gary, would you like to make any comments regarding the EDI
Oh, yes,
issue?
thank you, Chair. So I know this is semantics. The board, during the budget process, you did approve. There is still an Office of Equity and Inclusion. It is funded. It is now funded by cost allocations, not general fund. Again, I know these are budget terms, but that's a different way of funding the office that accommodated some concerns I had heard from commissioners, which is why I proposed a different funding stream. You will be discussing the office and equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts in general here at the county next Tuesday, August 1st. I have a proposal for you that I think will address concerns and help us to move forward, and you'll have to stay tuned to next Tuesday to hear that. But next Tuesday, we'll address this, and I hope come to some closure next Tuesday. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Gary. Tony, are there any other blue cards in the basket? I thought I saw something, but is there anybody else in the room who would like to testify who has not had an opportunity to do so? Thank you for checking on that for me. I thought I saw something in there. I will now see who is online through Zoom who would like to testify.
Madam Chair, I will begin with Mona Marie McCreary. Please state your name and area of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, good morning, board members and all that are in attendance. Mona Marie McCreary here, a resident of unincorporated Clackamas County. Oregon has a long, well-documented history of discrimination that we can't sweep under the rug. In 2003, Carl Bell successfully sued Clackamas County for discrimination and won a $1.5 million settlement, almost twice the amount budgeted to the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And on July 19, 2012, Clackamas County adopted a resolution valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion, but didn't open an official office until 2020. Ms. Taylor Black claimed Clackamas County's inclusion policy was nothing but talk. Lake Oswego Review reports that she filed a tort claim on November 30, 2020. In 2019, 2020, and 21, Mark Scholl publicly made disparaging remarks about marginalized communities, and EDIC issued a statement against his odious words saying, "We commend the resolution of the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners in the matter of censure of Mark Scholl, passed on 1/14/21. We will see your commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, not just through your written statements, but your budgets, programs, and policies that you establish." In an apology press conference on January 18, 21, Scholl asked the community to look at his performance in the coming weeks and decide, reported OPB. On July 12, 23, Free Bacon reported that Scholl said, "The letter we received from Here Together Oregon with the many signatures is nothing more than progressive left political pressure from a minority with a loud mouth. Again, with a disregard for minorities. Mark, we see you." Mark was the first person on record to suggest defending Office of Equity and Inclusion. I want to know how many of the employees in that office are in my minority group. How many of those employees will have discrimination claims against Clackamas County if they lose their jobs? Like Patrick Clausen last week said regarding another matter, the board's messaging is off. I say it's way off. Following the trail of public records, the fact that this is even on the table for discussion looks like retaliation against EDIC because they stood up against Mark. In my opinion, all things considered, if the Office of Equity and Inclusion is funded, that would be negligent and prove Ms. Black's case filed in 2020. I strongly suggest you seek legal guidance before you drive the county off a cliff into a sea of lawsuits that cost taxpayers money and minorities grief. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Up next.
Continuing the list with Mr. Bill Weir. Please state your name and area of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Bill Weir, Damascus. At a recent meeting, there was a discussion about defunding EID. One commissioner gave as a reason to keep EID going forward was a movie based on the murder of Emmett Till in the mid-1950s in Mississippi. The commissioner said it could happen here in Oregon. To me, the murder was a devastating horror that this could even happen, but also it is presumptuous and insulting of the commissioner to presume that the vast majority of decent people in Clackamas would descend into destructive racism after decades of progress by defunding EID. I want to speak to you about something that is not a movie, but current news. Yahoo reported on June 30, 2023, a recent bill passed in Michigan that would make it a felony to intimidate someone by using the wrong gender pronouns. Under the new bill, offenders are guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 5 years or by a fine of not more than $10,000. This could be the next Oregon legislation flagship bill. Just look at this year's shutdown, where the majority party wanted to codify minor children's physical mutilation and getting an abortion without their parents' consent. The devastated parents faced criminal and civil charges if they interfered, possibly causing financial ruin and family breakup. As proven by the mass hysteria in January 2021 that this county government is capable of, how would EID respond if a bill such as this one passed in Oregon, criminalizing wrong gender pronouns? What if there was an employee complaint? Would EID be calm, thoughtful, and investigate thoroughly before rendering a verdict? Or would it condemn the employee upfront, recommend a 6-month surveillance or firing, or more likely reporting to law enforcement? I think I know already. I recommend defunding EID. Thank you.
Up next, Tony.
We'll conclude the list with Mr. Tim Smith. Mr. Smith, please state your name and area of residence. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, hi, thank you. Yeah, my name is Tim Smith from Wilsonville. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, please let me know on my last 30 seconds, because I don't want to miss the best, the best part. But I am not a political person. I can't stand politics, and I hate, even worse, politicians. The only reason I'm here is because I am so concerned with the hypocrisy of what is going on with EID. I've never heard of such a term in my life. I had to educate myself on it. And it is a total masking of what's really going on. It's basically enhancing a minor group of people that are sabotaging the silent majority. I have nothing against, as this one lady said, she called herself a queer. I don't call you queers. You're gays or lesbians, but if you want to be called a queer, that's fine. But the only ones that are being attacked are those that oppose your values, and that would be Jesus Christ. You're not attacking Mark Shaw. You're attacking the values he stands for. I don't know if he's a Christian, but I know he stands for Judeo-Christian ethics. And the Bible condemns these very things you lesbians, homosexuals stand for. I have nothing against you guys. I have many friends that are, and they're very nice people. I found them to be very nice. However, the Bible stands against it. So what's happening is a blind hypocrisy. All you who've come forward have protested against Mark, a very decent human being, doing the very things that you're accusing him of doing you. You're hypocrites. And that disturbs me greatly. And let me tell you something about if I had to wrap this up, I'll tell you this. There's one man that we all know of that stands against this, and he's a black man. Mr. Weir talked about a woman by the name of Till, and it was horrible what happened to that poor boy, the way he was strung up. And she started the social movement that entered Martin Luther King. And if I had to say anything, he would stand against the gaze of how they're attacking these principles. And this is what he said. It's not the color of your skin that defines a person, but it's the content of your character that has nothing to do with special rights. So let him be your voice. And you attacking Mark the way you did is sabotaging his good character. He went to 911 to save people that were falling in the Twin Towers. He's a decorated hero, and none of you who come against him haven't even come close. So I'm disturbed. I'm the one who's being attacked. I'm a white male. This is cancel culture. So I'll just give you a list, and please
Thank
bear
you
with me.
very
You're gonna
much,
hate it.
sir. Thank you very much. Your 3 minutes are,
Okay.
yeah, thank you
I
very
was hoping you gave me 30 seconds, but
No,
thank you.
it's, no, 3 minutes, and you could submit the rest of your testimony online through the email link if you'd like.
I'll just pick up.
Thank you. Tony, who else?
Madam Chair, that concludes my list.
Okey-doke. Thank you very much. I will now close the public communication portion of this meeting, and we will move on. Gary.
Next is County Administrator Update. That's me. I like to use my time to share the good work of our county employees. Today, I'd like to recognize our County Veterans Service Office, and in particular, Gina Thomas, who's a Veteran Service Officer, for work she recently did to support a daughter whose father died. The father was a veteran. Here's what the person wrote. I had no idea what to do when my father died. I could not decipher what was applicable. I honestly spent hours on it and did not get very far. A friend of my father's suggested I contact the Clackamas County Veteran Service Office. I had no idea your resource existed. Going through my father's paperwork, it looked like you all helped him in the past with property exemption and other things. I find myself fortunate that Gina Thomas called me back. Her conversations were so helpful. She listened to my story, worked through the forms with me, and told me what support I needed to gather. In the end, she filed all the paperwork. It was such a relief and burden off my shoulders. Thank you to Gina and the rest of the Veterans Service Office team for helping our veterans and their families. It is really a wonderful resource that exists in our community. Yes, it does. So thank you to the note. Thank you to Gina Thomas and all of our team in our county's Veterans Service Office for the work they do. That is my update today.
That's a great story. Love hearing that. We are now at Commissioner communication portion of the meeting, and Commissioner West, you're up first.
Thank you. Everyone that came and testified today, thank you for engaging in your local government. Regardless of your background, where you're from, or your opinion, it is welcome here to be, and we need to hear from our constituents, and I appreciate it when we're not speaking to an empty room. And when you guys come and engage with us, that is what good government is all about. As I'm sure Counselor from Milwaukee, I'm sorry, I forgot, I haven't got to meet you yet, but also knows as he serves in Milwaukee, we appreciate your engagement. And this robust debate and conversation is vital to a healthy democracy and a healthy community. And so I love how we can share these important ideas. We can even sometimes disagree and not be disagreeable. And we are all part of the same community, so thank you for your engagement. I had the wonderful opportunity to spend the last week with Commissioner Schrader in Austin, Texas, and San Antonio. I'm sure I'll leave you some, I'm sure you got something to say about this also. But I got a chance as a new commissioner to go to the National Conference of Counties for NACO. And it was a little bit intense, but it was a great learning experience, and building relationships across the country with other commissioners who you start to talk to find themselves in similar situations that we deal with in Clackamas County. I remember sitting in on a breakout session on the Rural Action Committee Caucus.
Action Caucus.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they started to talk about like a lot of the infrastructure issues that rural communities or counties with large rural populations. Now, Clackamas County has the largest rural population out of any county in the state. We're kind of where the urban and the rural collide. But they were talking about issues that reminded me of our challenges as we are trying to deal with the Bull Run Bridge over there on the other side of the county, and finding where were grants applied for, how did they handle similar challenges. Talking within that committee, we started talking about mental health, addiction, and opioid crisis within the rural communities, and how were some innovative policies and ideas that local communities were able to make a difference that maybe we hadn't considered here yet. Made great relationships with commissioners out of Palm Beach County, Wyoming, Illinois, Chicago, and all over the U.S., and it was a great collaborative time. One of the most impactful things, though, and I think the best day was the last day, when Commissioner Schrader and I were able to go tour Haven for Hope Recovery Campus. It's 22 acres of an entire facility, and the organization basically meets the entire care continuum in one local place within Bexar County, which is about the size of Multnomah County in population in San Antonio. Anywhere from you're not clean and sober yet to a safe place to go, and that same campus transitioning into full recovery, long-term services, full healthcare needs met, daycare and safe living for families and dorm-style living, beautiful educational centers, workforce opportunities, and it was quite comprehensive. And what was so great about it is it starts to help you cast vision back home where we have a crisis that we're all dealing with and we all care deeply about. And so I know Martha and I are going to be talking further about how can we model some of these excellent things happening somewhere else that we never really would have known about or had the opportunity to bring home if we didn't get a chance to go there. And they are so willing to be helpful to Clackamas County. Their executive director is like, how can we help you avoid the pitfalls and the barriers that we had? How do you bring all your stakeholders along with you and your community as a whole? And then how do we tailor something potentially maybe to Clackamas County as we wrestle with this? And so it was quite visionary. It was quite inspiring. It was hard to sleep last night. Well, not that bad because we got in so late, but it's the type of thing that gets me excited, and it's the type of stuff that you really make tangible difference in people's lives in your community. So that was really special and important. So I'm glad to be back. Texas was real hot. Really hot. It's like, but at the same time, I thought it was a very fruitful and good endeavor. And I think we're going to bring some good ideas back here to Clackamas County. That's all I have this week. I was going to I think it got through the consent agenda, but I'll talk offline with you guys about my thoughts around the contract with the jail.
Okay.
Because we already voted on it, am I right? This happened, so in the consent agenda.
Yeah.
But I'll have a little bit of conversation with you guys offline on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Well, you're a hard act to follow, Ben. First of all, I really do want to thank all of you that came to testify today. And I do want to say that one of my jobs as a commissioner is to work with and respect all of my colleagues, despite the fact that I do think our conversation, I hope you all listen in, it is going to be, it'll be a difficult conversation, but I also think that's why we're here, is to have those kinds of conversations. And my hope that it moves forward with us really talking about justice, reconciliation, decency, and how we treat one another in community, and how diversity, equity, and inclusion is really a big piece of that. But I'm going to suggest now one more word to that. And I've kind of mentioned this to Ben, and then I'll talk about our trip a little bit. I think we should call it DEIR, with the R being resiliency. because as someone like Commissioner, my colleague, we have interracial families. So how we work with our children in the face of things that may happen to them that are unpleasant or can be perceived as discriminatory is you teach our children to be resilient. And groups of folks from our history that have dealt with, things that have been discriminatory, part of what we have to do as a nation is to work with each other to build resiliency in the face of adversity. And I also want to thank the lady who talked a little bit about equity, because and we're going to discuss this, and guys, I'm not getting a big discussion today, but to me, equity is access. Because if you have access to a library and to training and to education, and if you have access to those groups, like the group we gave $600,000, for example, in Canby, I believe they're doing equity work. They're taking people who may not be fluent in English and getting them the classes. They're taking people who may not have financial literacy skills, and they're teaching them across the board. Some of those folks are Hispanic, some aren't, from different backgrounds. But once you get those skill sets, then you can really move up the ladder of what's equal, because you can participate with an equal playing field. But that's a discussion for a later time. I really did enjoy traveling with my colleague. The place we went to see was phenomenal. They really are coming together with a solution of how we work with people who are houseless and on the street in a way that is so extremely effective. It was amazing. And I know Commissioner Savas, you've been interested in that too, so I don't think it's just going to be a twosome. I think it's going to be a threesome, or all of us, 5 of us, taking a look at that model. And it's a recovery-based model, and it works. It gets people off the street, clean and sober, one-stop shop. They get the services they need without having to really travel long distances, which is a barrier. So I'm really excited about looking at that model. And colleagues, I was honored by my colleagues at the National Association of Counties. I am continuing to be chair of the Community Economic and Workforce Development Steering Committee. The new president of NACO and the staff thought I had been doing a good job this past year. And at our meetings, basically, we went to visit Austin Community College because they wanted to show us their workforce facilities and how they are training young people and young adults and people who need skill sets to move up the manufacturing ladder. We heard an update and remarks from the U.S. Department of Labor with Nelsie Silva, who is the Deputy Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Affairs, Department of Labor. Why is that important? That's where we find out where the grants are. That's where we find out with our workforce, what kind of federal dollars are available that we can helpfully compete with and get funneled down to our community. We also heard from Honorable Dennis Alford, Deputy Assistant Secretary, Economic Development Administration, Department of Commerce, especially, again, why is that important to this county? Because these entities have competitive grants. When we know we're there and we know how we can access that, then we can become part of getting additional dollars for our economic development initiatives in this county. Happy to do that. We had an economic development discussion when we visited the Austin Community College. They took a mall that was basically unused, it was empty, and they turned it into a premier campus for manufacturing. So again, all of these things that we learn when we go with our colleagues across the nation are best practices that we bring back to share with our colleagues so we can get the tangible outcomes we need with the good ideas. And I will say, we do, you and I, Commissioner,
We have fun.
we're always full of ideas. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Sometimes you guys have to rein us in a little bit because, but anyway, that's my report, and I'm glad you made it on time. We didn't get in until past 1 o'clock.
We had two bad flights.
We had 2 flights that were bad, but anyway, that's it from me.
Thank you. Commissioner Shull, you're up.
Yes, good morning, Clackamas County. Thank you to everyone who came here or called in to testify to make this meeting productive this morning. On forest resources, the economy of Oregon will never be completely healthy until our forest management is healthy. Right now, the Oregon Department of Forestry is working on updating the resource management plan that will guide harvest in ODF-managed forests for the next 5 years. On 28 August, they're going to have a meeting to discuss the resource management plan. So anybody who's involved with forestry, mill operations, you need to tune in, go to Adaptive Management Program at ODF, and learn about that meeting. On fire safety, we've been lucky so far in Clackamas County. We've had a few relatively small fires. Up north at Klickitat, they have 61,000 acres burning today. In Curry County, the Flat Tire fire is at 24,000 acres today and 4% contained. Lane County's got a fire called the Bedrock Fire at 7,200 acres, 0% contained. I mention this to you because it's going to take probably 10 more weeks of safety and fire prevention to make sure that we can get through this fire season in Clackamas County without losing our valuable timber resources. So please, if you haven't done it already, visit the Clackamas Disaster Management website and make sure you're aware of our plan on fire prevention and also on the plan for how to deal with fire if it comes to your neighborhood. On government, the cost of government is rising faster than the incomes and the incomes of our family and small business, putting pressure on our young people to pay for this cost of government in the future. Bringing the cost of government back under control of the American people means having the courage today for each of us to cut every dollar of government spending that is not critically needed to pay for basic core services that the people of the county expect and need, and not a dollar more. Your help, your vote on the issues, your activism to reduce the cost of government at all levels of U.S. government, state, county, city, federal, is critical to the economic welfare of our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just want to acknowledge the testimony today. I thought it was a lot of brilliant points made today. I was really impressed. To the lady, I think her name is Marilyn or Marilyn, you're in the room. You opened up with, I'm not that articulate or I forgot what the word you used, but your message was brilliant. I just want to say your point about the steps and getting access really made the point about the term in the context of equity. I thought that was powerful. Alexa, you're still in the room. I appreciate your comments. I would love to talk with you later and really find out when your experience of people expressing those concerns occurred. When I came to this position not Clackamas County, but when I came to this position 12 years ago, I heard a little bit here and there about some inequities and people being treated differently because they were of a marginalized population. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But I do know that with the national politics where it is today, I think it's more heightened perhaps in the last few years than it's been in years past. But I would like to chat with you about that a little bit. I think, in my experience, I'm only 67, but in my experience, when I was younger, I had jobs. I saw people that wouldn't come to a public place of business where I worked and would not be served because of either what they looked like, what they wore, or the language they spoke, which is not English, or the pigment of their skin. And that is not acceptable, at least in public service, for how we, a public-facing agency, is. So it's imperative for government, public-facing, with public dollars, to make sure that everyone has access, is treated fairly and openly and equally. And sometimes we need access, i.e. equity, to get to that equality or access to equality. So I think those are the points that need to be really thought of and better articulated. But it is part and parcel of not just public service and public entities, but also in private sector that are successful, that they don't subject themselves to unnecessary lawsuits, claims, friction, whatnot, or danger, or sometimes loss of life because someone said something or treated them differently at the counter or the grocery store that led to a fight, a shooting, or whatnot. This happens, and to say it doesn't happen is not realistic. And we have to do everything in our power to make sure that our staff, our employees are trained, they're knowledgeable, they're sensitive, they're respectful. Word is sometimes lost in this context, they're respectful. And we've had our own incidences shared, I think, by one or two of you, in which it has caused cost to the county in lawsuits, damages, losses, and others, so forth. So again, I just want to thank everyone for their comments, and our library folks who worked so hard for years. I'm not sure everyone on this dais realized that almost every Friday of every day of every year for 2 or 3 years, meeting at the Oak Lodge Firehouse to talk about libraries, not just in Oak Lodge, but in Gladstone and everywhere else. And so applaud you for all your work and your advocacy and your compassion and your commitment to getting access, especially, and thank you very much, Jan, for your comments. It's about the kids.
Yeah.
My connection to libraries as a kid, and what I learned, what I had access to, changed my life. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, commissioners, for opining. I, too, appreciate the way in which the citizens' testimony was presented today. We have sat at this dais through many tumultuous meetings, and they have not all been pleasurable. But I do believe, as chair, that everybody has a right to come forward and state their opinion. And I do have to manage it for time. I am so thankful that the citizens of Clackamas County elected me chair, and I do represent all citizens of Clackamas County for the greatest good of Clackamas County. And we at this dais deal with many, many difficult problems, and the community input is so important. And just know you always have a place to come and talk, at least for 3 minutes. And if you need more time, any commissioner is always available to listen to you personally on a phone call or through email. It's a matter of scheduling. With me, it's just a matter of scheduling, okay? The libraries are very important. I was a librarian in elementary school, and it was challenging, to say the least. but the kids would come in and they all had their favorite sections, and my biggest challenge to them was try to teach them a Dewey Decimal System. These complicated numbers and this and this. And I had one boy who always wanted the book on origami. We had these different books where you fold up the papers and stuff. And so I would challenge him to try to find something else. Well, at the end of the quarter, it was a challenge for the kids to bring their books back so they could get another one, right? So one of the elementary teachers came to me and said, you know, they call you Tootie. I says, well, yeah, it's not Mrs. Smith. I never really appreciated that. Sorry, husband, but it's always been Tootie. He says, why don't you give them a Tootsie Pop? And so I nicknamed it Tootie Pop. So that one set Tootie Pop became the most valuable item. You thought that would have been worth $100 to those kids. So they all got a Tootie Pop for returning their books. And then kids would come out and says, well, I want one. I says, well, let's see. Bring your book back and you can have one. Oh, I got to go home and tell my mom. I have to bring my book back. So it was little things like that along the way that really excited the kids in the library. So going forward on this library, it took us a while to get there, and it was able to happen because of the money that came in through different sources. That this board made a very conscious decision, in the past board, to use the monies that was given to us by the federal and state government for sticks and bricks. Okay? That is so important to me personally, to build our aging structures, some of which are falling down and not even suitable because there has not been the effort to support our infrastructure. And there's many infrastructure projects that will go not funded, but we're doing the very best we can with the money that we have available to us. Commissioner Schrader, I too am about a recovery model, and I feel a little slighted that you didn't mention me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I know you. I know you know that, but I have a challenge for these commissioners. We've had a lot of discussion about the monies that have come in. I've never seen so much money come in on supported housing services tax dollars. We allocated a spending plan of $56 million and then found out we had an additional $21 million. That's almost $80 million that we're getting out the door. And we all have a perception of how we think things should go, right? As all you do. I'm going to challenge you that when we start talking about these models, that we do not use the term first. It is not housing first. It is not mental health first. It is not addictions first. It is not recovery first. It is an entire colluded system together. Because we get attacked from here, we get attacked. We have the housing advocates, oh, you need to do housing first, or you need to do this first. But it is a system. It's an integrated system where, number one, how did that person become homeless? We need to evaluate the person. Does the person want help? Because if they don't want help, look, folks, there's not a thing we're going to do about it. That is their free will to make the choice. And then we put them in a program to help them down the line. So this Board of Commissioners is very serious about ending homelessness and the stuff that we see on the streets that are not really palatable to a lot of us, but more importantly is helping these individuals discover why they got into the situation, help them and to get them onto a road of recovery, if that's necessary, and prosperity with jobs. Thank you all for coming. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.